Welcome to Start Before You're Ready, the podcast that proves that you don't need to wait for the perfect moment to begin your journey towards better health and happiness. I'm your host, Kelly Young. Remember, the first step is often the hardest, but it's always worth taking. Hey guys, it's Kelly and I am back with another episode of Start Before You're Ready. My guest today is very special and I'm really excited that he was willing to come on and talk to me today. He is my first son, my oldest son, Dalton Young. And this is a really big week for him because he is playing in the championship for the Professional Lacrosse League. He'll play on Sunday. This will air on Monday, so we won't know the outcome until after this airs. But I wanted to talk to him a little bit about lacrosse, a little bit about growing up in the KBC community, a little bit about kind of what he's learned as a student athlete, and just get a chance to talk to him. It's a treat for me to get to talk to any of my kids, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing from Dalton as far as what he's learned and kind of where he's going. And we're going to tell some funny stories. He's probably going to get mad at me because I'm probably going to embarrass him a little bit with some funny mom stories, but if you're willing to come on your mom's podcast, you have to be willing to take a few of those. So Dalton, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
My name's Dalton Young, son of Kelly, obviously, and graduated from the University of Richmond where I played lacrosse. I was a finance major, and this past year and a half now, I guess, I've been playing professional lacrosse while also doing some other ventures, including starting a business and kind of just living my life how I want to and staying away from the corporate side of things for as long as possible and seeing where things take me. Yeah,
I love that, Dalton, and I'm proud of you for that. And you know, when Dalton had an internship his junior year of college, he just realized literally on day one, he's like, this is not what I want to do. I couldn't argue with him because I had an internship my junior year of college. And I said the same exact thing. I was just like, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. This doesn't light me up. I have way more energy and passion than this atmosphere is going to give me. So I knew I had to create a different path. I didn't have as many balls in the air as you had while you were in college. I love that you're just doing anything you do, you're using it as a learning experience and you're not afraid to try. And I think that's something that's been a theme in your life throughout your life. And it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So if you're the kind of parent that's like, no, you need to get a job and you need to do, then you might disagree, but I have a lot of faith in Dalton and he is working. He's working as a professional lacrosse player and he's also working to build a business. So I couldn't be more proud. So Dalton, let's kind of go backwards a little bit and talk. I want to tell a story actually from when you were little. I wish I knew exactly what year. I should have looked it up, but I remember I got a postcard in the mail from a new gym that was opening literally less than a mile from our house. And I was really upset. Like, I think you might've been outside in the driveway when I went to the mailbox or whatever. And I came back and I was like, oh, this is it. This is going to be really hard for my business. And you said, Mom, do you really think they're going to do what you do? And I think what you were saying, I don't know. Do you want to say what you thought you were saying when you said that to me?
Probably just like community aspect and like the classes and the community aspect. And I just probably felt that it was going to be more of a commercial style gym where going and working out versus the classes and all the different instructors and everything would be my guess.
Yeah, I think so too. And just on that same note, this was in 2016. So let's see, you graduated in 2019. So you were probably a freshman in high school, maybe a sophomore. And I had been looking at studios. I had been trying to find a space where I could open up a fitness studio, something to enhance, not take away from my outdoor training, but something to enhance. And I took you to where my studio is now, Peacock Market, and I showed it to you and I said, what do you think? Do you remember this?
No, I mean, I maybe said.
Okay. You can tell we're not scripted. So I said, and you said, Well, this is just, it's a really a great example of who you are, even as a kid. You're like, CalDog, you're going to show me one more place that you're not going to buy or that you're not going to get. Don't waste my time, or something along those lines. Like, stop showing me places if you're not going to do it. And I'm telling you, Dalton, those words, they stung and they motivated me. And, you know, as a parent, one of the things that you want your children to see is that you walk the walk, and that you're not a talker, and you're not going to just talk about something, that you're going to do it. One of my biggest guiding lights and principles in life is to take action. And when you said that to me, I was like, all right, let's go. And within the week, that lease was signed. So you've had a big impact on me, as I hope, you know, we have had as your parents. But I just wanted to share those two stories with the Bootcamp community. I thought they'd appreciate it. Funny that you don't remember either. Now that I say it, do you remember it?
Very faintly.
Do you remember seeing the studio? It was the old vet.
I remember the first story more than the second one. I can't say I remember going to the studios.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. Okay. Well, what do you remember? What are your earliest memories of growing up when I was running the business? What do you actually remember?
I mean, I would definitely say going to the parking lot and doing kids boot camp and older boot camps, and kind of just like growing up. That was our life after school, or whatever the case may be. Dad was working late, didn't have a babysitter, and sitting in that Dairy Queen for classes or whatever it may be. But no, I think that's kind of, we just grew up running around, being outside and surrounded by, especially at that time, a lot of adults and older people, and we weren't afraid to go to those classes and didn't really care what anybody thought, probably more than any of us do now. And even going back farther than that, the classes at the pool, running laps around the parking lot and the tennis courts and all that stuff. I think that's just kind of what our lifestyle was, and wanting to play dodgeball or whatever it was, whatever game or activity. So no, I think it definitely shaped all of us with our not only athletic ability, but our just like want to constantly be active and moving and doing something.
Yeah, I think so too. And you guys were troopers. I would bring your scooters up or your bikes, but you guys were troopers. You were troopers. But you also had friends up there too. And you would, a lot of times there was, and when we were at Eastgate in particular, there was a grass field. So you guys would play soccer or pick up. You weren't always doing what we were doing. Usually you were doing your own thing, unless it was a kids boot camp. But yeah, that was definitely part of our family memory. A lot of times you, as the oldest, probably had to watch the other kids, and I probably put a little pressure on you to just make sure no one ran in the street, and probably made you watch other kids. So thank you for all that, Dalton. See, you are the oldest, and you definitely have firstborn personality. Ever since all of your siblings were born, you have the desire, you really want to protect, and you care about your siblings. One of the things in our family that I've always really appreciated, and I don't know if you kind of created this culture in our family, but you guys just seem to really look out for each other. I don't see a lot of fighting, even like wearing clothes. Like if, B-Dog's wearing your shirt, you're like, B-Dog, that's my shirt. Like nobody really, we don't, like, I hear other families like fighting about these things, and I just don't feel like you guys are like that. One of the memories that I have of you, and you're definitely not going to remember this because you were 3 or maybe 4. And this is when I knew as a mother that, okay, this kid's different. This kid's built a little different. He's wired a little extreme. So it was Brandon was 2 or 3, I'll say 3. And he was playing Loudon soccer, and he had the red, I remember so well, he had the red long shirt, and we were going to his Saturday morning soccer game. And you just, when you saw him out there, a switch went off on you, and you weren't, I don't want to say you weren't outgoing, but you weren't the kind of kid to like make a ruckus and yell. And, you were more conservative and reserved, but you started screaming for Brandon to score, cheering for him. Literally, you lost your voice at a 3-year-old soccer game, cheering for your brother. And I was like, oh, he's competitive. Where do you think that came from, Dalt?
Where it came from, I don't know, but I would just say, I don't know if Brandon was playing soccer at 3 years old, but
He was playing soccer at 3 years old. He was. Everyone started then. They started when you were like 3 or 4.
I don't know. I just felt like, I feel like for me, as far as I can remember, just a lot of people's like I didn't know a different life other than going to sports practices and having games on the weekends and all that. So I just think the competitive aspect and mindset was forced upon me, just constantly being surrounded, wanting to be on teams every season and constantly having games versus like even just thinking now the way people live their life is so different than I could have ever imagined just from like not doing those things on a weekly and daily basis. So I think constantly being surrounded around probably kids who are more competitive than the average Joe and playing in games and creating some of these relationships and understanding team and sports aspect of everything. It's like I know even in PE I was the most competitive person and carried to college where a lot of my teammates would say the same thing. It's just I guess kind of in my nature.
It's just how you're wired. It's okay. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. When we moved here from Richmond when you were 3, and I distinctly remember you watching football. You'd watch it. You'd get right in front of the TV. We had one of those big box TVs on the floor, and you'd ref the game, and you'd make all the plays with I don't even know the hand gestures, but you would sit there and do all the hand gestures, and you memorize them immediately. And that's when Dad was like, what the heck? You just had a huge love of sport. You just had a huge love of sport. And that's great. It's great to have that kind of passion. And I'm so happy that you still have it. It's really good. So let's move forward a little bit to high school. So when you were in high school, this is another mom story that you probably don't remember. So I'm just going to tell it. If you remember it, you do. If you don't, you don't. But I think you were in 8th grade and you made a pretty deliberate decision to stay at your public school. You went to Champ High School and to play 3 sports. You were a football player, a basketball player, and a lacrosse player. And at that time, so much has changed in the lacrosse world, but at that time, it felt like if you wanted to play at the next level, you really needed to go to a private school that was known for lacrosse, that focused on lacrosse. That's at least kind of what people were putting in Dad in my ear. And you didn't want to. You were like, no, I want to be a football player. I want to play champ football and I want to play basketball. And, you also said something to me that was definitely beyond your years. I remember we were actually driving on 50 and I got like a tear in my eye when you said it. And I just said, Dalt, I said, it's not too late if it's something you want to consider. We can definitely make it work. And you said, I just think it would be really hard for our family. And what you meant was that you knew you had 3 younger siblings and you knew Dad worked a ton and that it was going to be, a 45-minute drive at the time to go to PBI. And when you said that, and I was just like, what 8th grade boy thinks like that? You were just wise beyond your years. And I'm so glad that you made the decision that you did. And why I get emotional talking about that is I said to you, and we didn't have a lot of like good or bad. We're not like a deep conversation family. We never talked about, you guys did what you did. You always wanted to do it. We never really pushed you. If it was your idea, if we could make it happen, we said yes, but I was not the mom going through the flyer looking for stuff for you to do. I couldn't handle all the stuff that you guys wanted to do. So I was just like, a lot of times we tell you baseball was closed because you'd want to play baseball. You want to play everything. But so I said to you at that moment, I said, Dalton, you be the kid that goes to public school and plays at the next level. At that time, we didn't know what that meant, but it just sat in my head. And then let's just talk a little bit about the recruiting process. As you went into the recruiting process, how was that for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can start with the decision. I definitely remember kind of thinking through that, and I just really started playing lacrosse. It had only been a year or two, and breaking down the three sports. Football just wasn't really serious at that time. At the time, it was probably my most serious sport, and PVI football wasn't very serious. They wasn't very good. And then basketball, obviously being one of the best teams in the country, varsity in the future years probably wasn't a realistic thing. And then lacrosse, even I didn't know if I was just starting, so I didn't even know if I'd be playing varsity as a sophomore or junior, or what that might have looked like. But yeah, no, one of my best friends at the time, Jacob, we were best friends in middle school, and he was going to PVI to play lacrosse, and he was already talking to schools, like going into eighth grade summer, which is how it was. And so
it was different back then. Wasn't he recruited by Hopkins?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he definitely was talking to a lot of schools. So, and I also didn't know if I was going to play college lacrosse or if I wanted to play college football, if I was going to play a sport in college. Like, I didn't obviously know any of this stuff at this time. Right. So decided to just go to champ, wanted to stick with a lot of my other friends and everything. But then through the recruiting process, I definitely was a unique class because the recruiting rule, the change they made in the recruiting rule that you couldn't talk to coaches until September 1st of your junior year was implemented during our recruitment process. So there was probably 300 or 400 kids already committed to Division I schools that committed 8th, 9th grade. And then they added this rule. So if you were talking to any coaches or whatever, wherever you were in the recruiting process, it had to be halted. But I mean, for me, I had visited Bucknell, with a coach who brought me, who got fired within 30 minutes. And I've heard some crazy, or 30 minutes within a year. And I've heard some crazy stories about him. So I was wondering why he brought me, but so they went through all of that. And then the recruiting rule happened, and it's kind of just like, it was the longest 2 years because you had no idea what was going to happen September 1st, your junior year, and what the recruiting process was going to look like. There was no interaction with coaches. You were getting no feedback whatsoever. So it was definitely difficult.
It was really hard. It's hard now for these kids. I hear story, a lot of my boot campers, their kids are going through the process or been through the process, and nobody can prepare you for how hard it is. And it's a lot of emotion. And at that age, it's especially hard because you're already vulnerable. You're already at an age where you're not as confident as you are now. And you're just questioning yourself. And you were a very late add to the lacrosse world. And I claim that to be one of the things that makes you the player that you are today, that you hadn't been playing since you were 5 years old or 4 years old. You didn't have a stick in your hand. Phil Kyle, our neighbor, knew you were a great athlete. And he said to Daddy, you should really have him play lacrosse. And you were playing soccer at the time, and I loved you as a soccer player. I loved all of you as soccer players. You were great soccer players, very aggressive and athletic. And I thought you'd regret quit. I thought all of you beat our, I was like, you're going to regret quitting soccer. Like, you really are. And then of course y'all went to playing college, but I'm so glad you did, because you followed your heart and you tried something new and you were really passionate about it at that late age. And I love to tell that story to other parents, Dalton, because a lot of times people think like if you didn't start when you're 5 or you didn't start when you're 10, then it's too late for you. But it's a combination of things. And was that you were very competitive and athletic, but you also had a lot of passion for the game. And I think that that's taken you farther than anything. Just going back to the recruiting process, and I hope you're okay with me saying this, but like when we started to send you to camps and stuff, coaches would say, he's just not fast enough, or he doesn't have the skill, or he doesn't, there were some, you heard some things as a young kid that were like, okay, it's hard to get faster necessarily. I mean, that's just kind of an ability, but what you did, and that's why your game is so incredible right now, I think, is any obstacle that you had, anything that you weren't God-given, you found a way around it. You never stopped figuring out like, okay, I might not have the speed, but I can still get through guys. Here's how I'm going to do it. You kind of have Dalton's way of playing, and it's really fun and unique to watch. And I do believe that it came from playing other sports as well. I think that you learned a ton as a football player and as a basketball player. Anything else that you want to say about the recruiting process?
I mean, I just think when you're talking about multiple sports, I think half of learning a new sport, there's half of it of the skills and like learning the game of lacrosse. But then I would say the other half is just team sports and hand-eye and just like learning how to be a part of a team and playing for a team. And so I think just like, doesn't matter what sport you're playing, like that's where I feel like you see so many athletes that cross calibration and being able to jump from sport to sport. Most of it isn't having a niche focus on that sport, but it's the skills and traits of playing other sports that are so important. Yeah. And then to your point with athlete stuff, like growing, even though I was at a young age, I guess had great hand-eye and could play well and do things well with the ball or like basketball or running or whatever it may be. But one of my favorite things that I remember growing up, and I took it as a compliment and obviously loved him a lot as a coach, but I think it was my junior year, my junior year, I want to say I think it was my sophomore year, spring. I was playing lacrosse. We must have not had practice, and I went to some football training day, not training day, but like they measure your 40 and your 5, 10, 5 and like a vertical and all that stuff. And I think I ran I want to say like a 5.4 40 or something, or 5.3 40, which was like what's a lot of the offensive linemen, a lot of these like random 270-pound kids coming out of a champ who probably never played a sport and out there running the same speed as me. And Coach Dawson at the time said something along the lines of like, you are the best non-athlete. You're the best like non-athlete I've ever seen. And I think he was just, speaking to just like my more mental ability, but like just willingness to like always compete, and didn't matter if I was playing against the best athletes in the world or the worst athletes in the world. I was going to do whatever I could to not stand out in a negative way and like prove that I belong. So I think that was a big thing for me, is like, it was kind of like, I'm not going to be the best athlete, but like, just give me a chance and I'll prove myself, sort of thing. So I definitely want to see if he remembers that and ask him.
We learned so much as a family from Coach Dawson. He is one of the greatest coaches I think that you guys had. And fortunately you all got to play for him for a bit of time. And he used to have meetings with the parents. That's one of the many extra things that Coach Dawson did as a high school football coach. And I remember Daddy and I went in one morning and met with him, and he was talking about you and Brandon, because you were both, and he was just like, Brandon's like a Giselle. He's just natural, and he's this and he's that. And he's like, Dalton, he shouldn't be able to make the plays he makes. I don't understand. No one understands how he makes the plays he makes. He was basically just saying like, just what you just said, but he definitely said that to us as well. Like, he doesn't understand how you figure it out, but you taught him too, as an athlete, that, to have confidence in you and that you'll figure out a way to make it happen. So that's really great that you remember Coach Dawson, and all of the culture on that team was incredible. We had football, and the Champ football still does it to this day. And I've heard a lot of other high school sports teams do this, but every Thursday night without fail during the season, we had a team dinner, and he had so many mini lessons within that team dinner that he taught you guys, as far as sharing a meal together. And everyone knew on Friday morning I was going to be extra fired up for boot camp, because I just heard a Dawson speech the night before. I loved him so much. I loved the way he talked to you guys, and I just loved just what he created, the culture that he created. I personally would take things that I saw him doing and bring it to my workout community, because I saw how well it worked. So one of the things that I hear the most. And most recently, we've seen on social media now that so I guess we should fast forward a little bit and talk about you. We talked a little bit about you playing at Richmond, and you ended up having, because of COVID, you got a 5th year at Richmond. Again, there's a little bit of a loyalty thing. There were some other schools that were interested in having you come do their 5th year there, and it might have made more sense academically or might have made more sense with the degree, but you were a Spider and you weren't going to take that Spider jersey off. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I don't think I was really ever considering going to another school, having 3 or 4 other guys that I ended up staying with and living with for my 5th year. It was just, I guess to explain the situation a little, at Richmond specifically, if you graduate with a business degree, you can't get a master's, any sort of master's business degree. So you're very limited in your options of what you could do post undergrad. And which is some of these other schools, top ACC, like nationally recognized schools or Big Ten schools that have these awesome 1-year MBA programs or Master of Finance that could just lead to great opportunities down the road. So it was obviously something to think about, but I don't think it was really ever a consideration.
What would you say your biggest lesson you learned from Richmond or Coach Tamati or the team culture there? His big thing was on discipline, and his 2 things were discipline and then also leadership. So he had a big focus on every little thing was done a certain way. So just some examples, our lockers all had to look the exact same every single day. And it got definitely a little less strict, but our freshman year, one day, he probably just came in, had a bad morning, came in and checked the locker room. And there was like 6 or 7 guys that had messed up lockers. And we just showed up to practice and he was like, everyone get on the baseline. And he's like, he named 6 or 7 guys. And he was like, whose locker's neighbors with those 2? So like, if your locker was messed up, you weren't the one who had to do it. It was the 2 people next to you. So it'd be like, if your locker's neighbors with those person, get on the line. So there was like 12 or 14 guys, and none of the guys whose lockers actually were messed up, but those 12 or 14 guys had to bear crawl down and back the whole field, which took probably 10 minutes for everybody to do. So, I mean, just things like that. And the way he established the program, they ran it was like just under a mile to practice every day, full gear, holding your cleats. So just imagine 50 guys in their full gear, in their helmets, holding their cleats, holding their sticks, running to practice in sneakers. And then you get there. And so they would do that every day. And then we transitioned to tough things like that. Like he was like, I'm not going to have the best athletes. I'm not going to have the best players, but we're going to control what we can control. We're going to be in the best shape. We're going to have the ability to play 4 quarters and run the whole time. And I think that's like the first game of Richmond lacrosse history. They took Virginia, who was a national powerhouse for many years, to overtime or lost by one when there was a team that was a bunch of random guys that were going to college who were like probably already rushing the fraternity. And he was like their senior spring, like snatching them from going to whatever random SEC school or whatever school. And like, nope, you're going to play college lacrosse, and took all these random freshmen, sophomore kids who weren't playing and ended up winning a conference championship and competing against all the national teams, which is pretty crazy, especially like in today's world. In today's world, you see a lot of these startup programs and they lose every game by 20. It's just impossible with no reputation. It just takes forever. So the discipline aspect, and I think he was obviously ultra competitive with everything he did, even playing basketball against him or whenever he would compete against things, like it was like a different side. Like I think we felt like he was going to hurt us at times, just how competitive he was. So I think, and he rubbed that off against all of us. And obviously some days we dreaded going to practice, but he
he really brought out the discipline aspect of things and forcing us to do everything a certain way and touching the line, and every single rep, every single drill was just done a certain way. And if it wasn't, like, you were going to be punished for it. So I think it's just like why we see so many successful people out of the program in the business world is because they were so structured, so regimented, and it's a large part from Coach Chamati.
Yeah, no, Chamati's awesome. We love him so much. And again, I remember the recruiting when you were being recruited. I don't think I liked him before I met him because I felt like just the world, just to be, completely transparent. Like if someone looks at like someone where you are right now, and when you were going through the process, a coach might say, I'm interested in you, but then not talk to you for a really long time. And it's very emotional. And I remember your junior year when you weren't recruited yet. So your junior summer is when you got recruited, right? Is that right?
It was no. So, well, yeah, I guess the end of that September 1st was when like you could start talking to coaches. But so I visited, and I've told him this, like I hated Coach Chamati at the time during the recruiting process because I visited Richmond 3 times. I was constantly talking to him, and he never offered and dragged the process on. I mean, to have that process be dragged on a year and a half is kind of crazy, and a lot of times you hear those stories, a coach never ends up offering or continues to talking to them. And he told me, I want to say, like it was the beginning of my summer, my senior year. He said something like, we're waiting to hear from a few other guys. And it wasn't, and so like, I was like, all right, like I need to really start. If those guys commit, like there's not going to be a spot for me. And there wasn't, like, it's not like I was offered yet. So it was kind of waiting to hear from other schools. And I was honestly a few days probably committing to Lafayette because I wasn't offered from Richmond. And I remember he called me, and I was like even thinking about leaving Lake George that year because there was a Georgetown prospect day. So I sent their coaches an email like, hey, thinking about coming to this, would it even be worth it? And they were like, no, we don't have any spots open. That was like kind of like, all right, like I really probably need to make a decision. And then Coach Chamati called me on that trip and was like, we'd like to offer you a spot. And so that was like kind of like took a lot of weight on my shoulders and was like super exciting.
Because it was late. So, we know when it was because my dad's race is always in July. So it was July of your junior summer. So that's unusual. It's one of the things that Chamati said to us when you went, I think after you had already, because we never met with him before he made that offer. And then we went to go have a meeting with him, and I really liked him right away. I could just tell he was the kind of coach that I would gladly hand my firstborn over to because I could, well, first of all, he's from New York and, he played at Duke. I mean, he just had a lot of great, I just talked to him pretty easily, but he said something about you that I made me realize that he was the right coach for you. Cause he said, I've never seen a linebacker, point guard, attackman, but I like it. And I was like, he likes Dalton for who he is. But I was also worried because I knew he was really regimented and strict, and I knew you had your own game, and I didn't know how that was going to work in Richmond lacrosse. And I don't know that it necessarily did when you first got there. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, Dalt, where you were in the depth chart?
I think what you mean by that is just like the way he had his certain ways that you could play. And that was kind of it, like to give some context for people that may not know lacrosse, like backhand or like behind the back or doing things like one-handed was just like, it was a no-go. And especially if you weren't like one of his top guys, like he would have like, I remember what year it was when my freshman or sophomore year, he's like, there's 2.5 guys that can shoot sidearm or something like that. And I wasn't in one or the half. So just like there was of like the 53 guys. And so I think that just like kind of speaks of like, you couldn't really, it was like, you had to do something like very structured, very disciplined, like overhand everything. I think a lot of people kind of took it as like taking away from their creative freedom, but honestly, it definitely did. And so I think he realized that and found a great balance of, okay, we're going to establish the fundamentals. We're going to, like, at the beginning, you're not allowed to do any of that stuff, but it's not like it's going to leave your repertoire or your mind. So if we really pound and establish a lot of these fundamentals and doing everything the right way, when an opportunity presents itself to maybe go behind the back or throw a one-hand pass or shoot sidearm, your natural instinct will take over and do that. And so I think that's where it took a while to start a transition. And even now we see more and more kids throwing behind the back passes, shooting behind the back, doing all this random stuff. And they're finding success. But at the end of the day, it's the established fundamentals and doing that's 95% of the plays where you probably don't realize it. And then you see the 5% of them doing the quote trick stuff but it's not nearly as common, and a lot of times it probably is the right play.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's a great example of him as a leader. Just it's always great to see somebody like that, especially going from being a certain way to then molding a little bit, responding to the team and changing a little bit. And you guys have said that. I know, I guess parents do that too, right? They start off really strict and then they give you a little bit more leeway. But I think it was also exactly what you said in the beginning, Dalton. It was a really, really important part. Like, he was starting with kids that were nowhere near the level of the other teams that he was going to be playing. So he had to control the things. He had to create a certain atmosphere in order to get to the point where you guys were going to be able to compete. And then once you got to that point, then he gave you some leeway. I think that's really cool. I actually love that. And his career has been incredible. And I think it speaks to a lot of what you just described as a player. So that's great. Okay, let's go forward a little bit to where we are now. So did you, and we have never talked about this. So did you imagine yourself as a professional athlete when you were in high school?
Probably not. No. I mean, I think it's obviously anybody who grows up playing sports' dream to play.
No, but you didn't talk about, I mean, when you were little, you did, like elementary school, you would write football, nothing about lacrosse. You didn't even play lacrosse.
And I remember, I don't know, this is a weird, and he's probably going to give me crap for it, but I remember asking Dad, like I was probably 10 years old. It's like, Dad, do you think if I trained for basketball every day, I could have a chance of making the NBA? And he was like, no.
Okay. You should ask me. You don't ask Dad stuff like that.
Well, I
would have said absolutely. There's nothing you can't do.
Well, I think that was just how he still thinks, just like
he's
very
logical,
linear
in his thinking. Yeah,
which was honest. Which looking back, 5'11" kid who can jump about 12 inches. There was 0% chance that was ever going to happen. So. But no, I think it's obviously the dream, getting to be able to travel at this age and play sports play a sport in a different part of the country with the best players in the world. And even if we're not making what the NFL or NBA or a lot of these other guys, these professional leagues make, just the ability to continue to compete. Because I look at a lot of my teammates who are working in New York City or Arlington or wherever they may be, and it's like they just don't have the competing aspect as much in their life anymore. And for me, just to imagine that is kind of tough, and why I think I need to always be surrounded by sports. So just being able to do that year round and compete with the best players in the world and meet new friends and travel different places, it's been an awesome experience.
Yeah. So going back to when you tried out for the Outlaws, because you in particular, I mean, had an incredibly hard year. There was just, in the attack world specifically, there was just a ton of competition to try out for the team. And I'm very, I don't know, let's use the word superstitious, but I believe that like certain things have power and meaning. And the fact that you were trying out in Albany, which is my hometown where I'm from, on Memorial Day weekend, I was like, okay, that made me feel really good. But then I didn't know anything about professional lacrosse. And I was like, okay, Andrew, if he doesn't make it this year, like, will he have a chance for next year? And Dad was like, no, it doesn't work that way. He's like, it's just, this is it. So I was more stressed than I usually am that Memorial Day weekend, just because as your mom, I knew that you had what it took, and it was just going to be all about the tryout. Like if you were able to show your skills and show, if how much they were going to know about you coming from Richmond, which wasn't looked at maybe then as the same program as some of the other schools. So it was the Monday of Memorial Day, and I was at Energy. I had taught a couple classes in the morning, and I was just doing the windows. When I'm nervous, I clean. When I'm anxious, I clean. And I was just like, we hadn't written you yet. We hadn't communicated with you at all about the weekend, because you like to kind of do your thing, and it was your thing. And so finally I wrote you, or I went to grab my phone just to send you a text to say good luck, because I don't know, whatever. And it was 11:11, which is my numbers. And I sent you a message, and you wrote me back. And I was really surprised, because I didn't think you'd write me back. And you said good. And I was like, oh, wow, he wrote me back. And then so I started doing stuff again. And then I forgot what happened. But I grabbed my phone again, and it was 1:11. And I think you told me to write, whatever, whatever. And I said, well, Dalt, whatever happens, it doesn't matter, but I'm taking this as a good sign. I've looked at my phone twice today, and it was 11:11 and 1:11. And you wrote me back and said, and I cry, and you said, and I'm number 11.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I screenshotted it. I have it. It's on my phone. So that was really special for me as your mom, just because it's anytime your kid gets to do something that that they're born to do or dreamed of doing as a parent, it feels really good. And let's talk about the Outlaws a little bit, because it's been a ton of fun to watch you play professional lacrosse with literally some of the best players in the world. And I think you've learned a lot through your experience. You've made some great friends, and you've gotten a lot of nice remarks from some of the other kids about being a great teammate. Just tell us a little bit about what it's like to be an Outlaw and how that's going.
Yeah. And I think I'll start by going back to some of your earlier comments of just the tryouts and stuff, because they have been calling it the best draft class, and because it was because of COVID, it was the combination of all the 2023s and the 2024s in one year. So I wasn't drafted in the 4 rounds. So showing up to training camp, it was really had no idea if I was going to make it or not and what that was going to look like. And so when I did make it, I was obviously super ecstatic. And then the way it works is you're there for a whole week if you make it, and then you play that first game. And so there's 25 guys who make the team, but only 19 play in the game. So I wasn't playing in the game that week, but I was still there, watched it. And then the tough part about it is if you don't travel or make the team, or if you don't make the 19 that week, you're not traveling with the team. So I could have gone the whole season and never seen those guys again. It's not like I had a way to prove myself, or it was as tough as it sounds, I'm pretty much banking on someone to get hurt or someone to play bad, and then I get a chance. So I kind of just didn't know if I was going to ever play, or if I was going to spend the whole year just sitting there, or if I was going to get cut and they were going to pick someone else. So even though you make it and you're not playing, it doesn't really mean anything. So we played that first week and lost. And then the second week I wasn't going, and it was Thursday night at 10 o'clock. I was at a bar with Maddie and Brandon and Rhiannon and Alexandria. And my coach calls me on Thursday night at 10, and he's like, hey, one of our guys might be a little hurt. Is there any way you could make it tomorrow if you had to? And I was like, yes, but obviously thinking in my mind, I wish I wasn't out drinking at a bar right now, the night before my first game.
That makes it so much better. It's such a better story.
But so, and I was like, yeah, I can make it. And he was like, all right, nothing's for sure. I'll call you back. So I was like, we hadn't left yet. And he probably called another hour later at 11, was like, hey, we need you to come. And I was like, all right. So then I went home and started packing, and I didn't finish packing till 1 a.m. and hopped on a flight to Charlotte. because that was our game. And we were playing Friday. So I flew in Friday morning. We played Friday night and got to like get there right for shoot around and then played our game. And it was like one of the craziest games of the year. We ended up winning by 1 in overtime, 18-17. So it was kind of like a crazy first game experience, and then being able to win. And after that win, playing in every game after that, and kind of just like getting that opportunity. Okay, this is the only chance I'm going to have to really prove myself, and was able to do that. And I mean, it still felt like every game I had no idea if I was going to be playing the next week. So it was like week to week, obviously. And then I ended up playing every game. And this year has been completely different, of just like feeling more established. Not that, I mean, of course, anything can be taken at any time, but being able to just play more freely and speak my voice and just kind of like play the way I want to play has been kind of welcoming. And so we've had a great year this year. Started off a little slow, and then I think making one of the best signings of Jared on our team, who was coming from the NFL, playing for the Falcons, and kind of, I think, jump-started our team. And I think the best thing about the Outlaws is just how young we are and how well we all mesh together. Just like whether it's going out after the games or just hanging out and talking, we all just get along. Doesn't really matter the background or anything. We have a 37-year-old who's a New York State trooper with 2 kids, and he loves messing around with a bunch of 23, 22, 24-year-old recent grads. And so I just think that chemistry is part of the reason for all of our success. And just, it's been a ton of fun meeting these guys and from all over the country, all different schools, and being able to compete with them.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun to watch. It really is. I'm really impressed by the way you guys have come together, because you can put a lot of superstars on a team and it can not go well. And for whatever reason, I think it's just a combination of great guys with a lot of mutual respect for each other. But you guys are making it work really, really well. And it just doesn't feel like there's egos, and, you're not part of there's 4 players in particular that are I can never say the word. Say it for me, Dalton.
Tawarton. It's the Heisman. It's the Heisman of lacrosse, like the best college lacrosse player. And so we have 4 of them on our team,
right?
On offense. So which is it's pretty crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy, and it's fun to get to see you, get to play with them, and just the level of lacrosse is really fun to watch. And it's been really fun. I've enjoyed getting to know Brennan, and, now his mom, and it's just like all these people that you used to kind of, I mean, I'm super competitive too. So like, I don't want to say I never liked, but like they were your competition for so long. Like we played Duke, we played, we didn't like these kids, and now I like love them. So it's just funny to now have people from all the different teams come together. So I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to go back to boot camp. So I hope that's okay. But you come to my classes sometimes. Your girlfriend, Maddie, we've really turned her into someone that enjoys fitness. I told Maddie that I wanted to have her on the podcast because when she first interned for me a couple of years ago, I said, well, part of your job is you have to come to classes. And she wasn't really loving that idea. And she didn't want to go to cardio, and she had a lot of rules, but now she's going to all the classes, and I'm super proud of her. And I know she likes it when you go with her sometimes. And I'm curious what you think as a professional athlete when you come into the studio. Obviously, it's a huge mix of abilities and ages, but you're there to get your workout. Are you able to get a good workout when you come in?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with going to class is I just like for the last 8 years working out in high school and in college, or I guess 9 years, being a part of a group or a team when working out, I never had just gone to the gym and had my own workout. And even now, even the last year and a half, I've really struggled with being consistent about it because I just don't really enjoy it. So I think the big difference is with the classes of just being surrounded by people and being able to push yourself with other people being around you, and kind of just feeling part of a group or a team And so I think that's the biggest thing that I love about it. And it is honestly, it's impressive, like being a part of so many tough workouts and seeing some college athletes struggle through some of the things that we do, and then going to classes and seeing the ability of so many of my peers in the bootcamp classes being able to do a lot of the stuff and being successful in a lot of their transformations. It's been pretty awesome, and honestly like astonishing to see that, like the ability of so many people and their mindsets and what they're able to do.
Yeah, that's really nice of you to say, Dal. I know you came home a couple of times and you're like, I can't believe how strong, somebody is, or you're just like, you're really impressed. And I mean, that made me happy. And I think you said it, you were coming to class quite a bit before you tried out for the Outlaws, because it was kind of like a transition time. And you're like, this is what we need, really, like this conditioning, the way you program your class, where you're doing something hard and then you're doing something cardio. And then he's like, this is really what we need. And that was probably one of the biggest compliments I've gotten as a fitness instructor or fitness coach for the past 30 years. Cause I knew that you're not the type to just say that. And that if you said it, then you really meant it. And I've said that to other parents too. And because, a lot of times parents, it's just more affordable, it's more convenient, and their kid, they need conditioning, and you always want to send them off somewhere where it's like you have to drive them, and then it's really expensive, and like if they're willing to hang out with some older people, if they can lose their ego at the door and just like come work out with us, I can give them a great workout. So I do like to say, even my kids, a couple of them, not all of them, but have been a part of workouts and said good things. So thank you for saying that, Dalton. All right. So you get one more opportunity to share something with our community. We didn't really we're going to have to have you on again, because it's been almost an hour. But I do want to talk just a little bit right now about what you're doing on the entrepreneur side and how that's going. You don't have to say necessarily what you're doing, but maybe just talk about what it's like to try to create something and start something new that you've never really done, and just how that's going.
Yeah. And the idea kind of came at the intersection of both sports and corporate America. Ultimately, it was Dad's idea, but I think we've definitely transformed it and kind of morphed it into the combination and combining with sports and my perspective as well. So it's been interesting. It's been over a year now of just trying to kind of throwing myself out there and learning. And I would say if I were to do it again over the last year, it would probably take us 3 months to do what we've done in 14, with just like all the wasted time and energy doing things that were probably unnecessary, or didn't really know what we were doing, or trying to figure things out. So at the end of the day, if nothing turns up out of it, or we don't end up creating anything, I feel like the time I've spent just trying to learn has been extremely valuable. But there definitely are days where, and I think that's where, like months 4 to 8, I was just lost. And I still am very lost today, of just like daily tasks to do, not having someone to tell me, or like being a part where like I'm sitting in meetings. I think a lot of people, where I lose it for myself, is a lot of people are spending a lot of their corporate time in meetings and not actually doing physical work. That's only a few hours out of the day. And for me, it felt like I needed to constantly be doing something. And so if I wasn't doing physical work, I wasn't doing anything. So and I still feel like that. So trying to have a mindset transition of, I don't have to be actually typing or producing outcomes or output. I can be reading or doing other things, and that's still actually working or progressing. Or even, I think my favorite thing that I've been doing is just talking to people and getting their ideas and thoughts of the idea, and just what I could be doing differently, what I could constantly be doing. That's like, every time I leave those calls, I feel like I completed a day's worth of work in 30 minutes. And so like, that's why I'm constantly trying to reach out to people and talk to people about it, which I probably don't do as much as I should, but it's definitely been interesting. And I think the main reason for me wanting to do something like this and not having a corporate job is lacrosse isn't right now a full-time gig. I mean, you can make it with camps and everything else in both leagues, but I think for me, the freedom of being able to be my own quote unquote boss and do my own thing and trying to create this. But like, if I need to go to practice on a Friday at noon, I can do so. If I'm in New York City right now with a friend and being able to just like work from here and hang out. Went and shot on Long Island yesterday with Brennan, just like the freedom to do these types of things, but also has been extremely valuable. So hopefully start to create something and get some users and make something out of it over the next 3 to 6 months and see kind of where it goes. But it's definitely been interesting, but valuable experience.
Yes, for sure. Sure. To build something from scratch is really what you've done. And yes, I'm not going to be an annoying mom and say that I'm proud, but I would just want to ask you one more thing, Dal. As you continue to grow as an athlete and now an entrepreneur and a person, what are the principles or values that you hope to carry on through every chapter? What do you really value most?
I would just say, like, for me, it's kind of a lot of it has been, I think we've talked about a lot today, of just the mindset aspect of things, of there's only a few people in this world and who are just like naturally gifted, or whether it's in work or in sports, who just kind of have things figured out. And it seems like no matter what they do, they're successful. They're always they get recruited by the best schools or get the best jobs, or feel like that they're can talk anybody's ear off and are just like super intelligent. And I guess I've never felt being like an extreme in any of those aspects of life, but just like kind of having the mindset of, whether in any aspect of life, like not going to be the strongest, biggest, fastest, whatever, but it's like, I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to try and figure things out, and I'm going to try and learn, I think is super powerful.
Yeah. Confidence. And the underlying theme, if you go back and listen to this, the thing that you're going to hear the most about you, and this is something I already knew as your mom, but team, you're just team minded. And I think, that's why you get energized when you meet with people and you share ideas. And that's one of the reasons why you've been successful as an athlete. Not necessarily being the most skilled player, but being the most team-minded player. You can bring out the best in everybody around you. And that's something that is your superpower. So you might not think you have a superpower as far as like speed or strength or whatever, but your superpower is bringing out the rest and everyone around you. And I think it really speaks to what you're working on, what your project's about. As we've had this conversation, in my mind, I've kind of put it all together, and it really speaks to what you're doing. So thank you, Dalton. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I can't wait for the game. When this airs, we'll know the answer, but you made it to the championship. You have an incredible team. We're taking a big bus up there to go watch you guys play. We're so excited about it. We've had so much fun as a family watching you, and your friends are just incredible from all walks of life, from high school, from college. You have continued to surround yourself with some really amazing people, and that is definitely your superpower. So we'll be cheering for you, Dal.
Thank you. And thanks for having me on. I'm excited for it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Start Before You're Ready. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend who might need a little motivation. Ready to start your own journey? Check out our workouts and nutrition coaching programs at kellysbootcamp.net. You can choose from in-person sessions or virtual programs. Set up a complimentary coaching session to get started. Follow along with me and the show on social media at Kellys_Bootcamp. Until next time, this is Kelly Young reminding you that the best time to start is always now.